Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Gallagher, and I run Thraben University, a site exclusively for legacy death and taxes. Although today's not a D&T day, today is a donation deck list today. So today's deck list comes to us courtesy of user WD40, not to be confused with the lubricant themselves. They're not sponsoring me today. But thank you to Will, WD40, for sponsoring this stream. And folks, it's going to be a fun one because we are playing with the Antiquities War in Legacy. Yep, this is Legacy. So here we go. Let's take a look at this deck list. I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to break it down because it's a bit odd. So essentially, we're playing a bunch of very cheap or free artifacts in order to go and maximize the power of cards that have synergy with artifacts. So technically speaking, we have 19 zero-cost artifacts plus 4 Seat of the Synod, 4 artifact lands, and 2 more Darksteel Citadels. So getting Metalcraft, not going to be a problem. These help to enable sort of our payoff cards, with Thoughtseize being sort of a lesser payoff card. So to support the core, we have 4 Force of Wills, which are free counterspells, and 2 Metallic Rebuke, which has Improvise, which lets you tap your artifacts to help pay for this. So in most cases, Metallic Rebuke is a 1 blue mana counters target spell. I mean, it's technically a mana leak, but most of the time people don't have 3 mana to pay for things in Legacy. So let's talk about these payoff cards, and then we're going to go back and talk about these a little more. So the Antiquities War is an enchantment, and it's a saga. So for anyone who doesn't know how those work, when it enters the battlefield, you get to do a thing. On the next upkeep, you get to do a thing. And on the upkeep after that, you get to do a thing. So the first 2 things you're going to do are sort of a Tezzeret activation. You look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you pick an artifact from them and put it into your hand. With the third activation of this, artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. So you remember all those zero-cost artifacts that we're playing? What if those were all just 5/5s? I think that means the opponent would just be dead. So this is a very powerful card in a shell like this. Now, obviously, you can't always draw this, so you need more things that synergize well with artifacts. So now we have Karn. Most relevantly, his -2 ability gives you a 0/0 colorless construct creature token, artifact creature token, that gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So he gets to make big bigs for 2 turns in a row. That's very strong. And if you don't draw either of those, you have Sai, Master Thopterist. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 Thopter. Oh, that's not bad. You can also sacrifice some artifacts to draw a card if you're in a pinch. The 1/4 body is relevant as well. So essentially, your game plans are cast Sai, crap out a bunch of artifacts, or, in the other direction, crap out a bunch of artifacts, and then use either Karn or the Antiquity Wars to go and really do some silly things and produce a ton of power quickly. So I'm going to assume if I attempt to donate for you to play Caleb D's Battle of Wits deck, it would break your borrowing limit. Basic Planes, if you wanted me to do that, you should send me the deck list first, and then I can confirm that. I imagine the answer would be yes, but we can see by how much it is. I'd be willing to entertain that thought. For anyone not aware, Caleb D just 5-0'd with Legacy Battle of Wits somehow. So that was cool. I might have to go back and watch that video. So there's sort of like a couple other of these high-end cards that I haven't talked about yet. The first is Girpar Orrery, which you've probably never played. So each player can play an additional land on each one of their turns, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. So what does that mean for me? If I go all in, and I go, like, play out 3 or 4 0-mana spells, and then play the Antiquity Wars, and that doesn't work, this is the backup plan. because there are very few of my cards that I can't just empty from my hand at will. Force of Will and Metallic Rebuke are the only ones that are like even a little tiny bit hard to cast because like your opponent has to give you a target most of the time. But this card can be essentially a one-sided ancestral every turn or two. It's extremely powerful. Now, it can sometimes work in your opponent's favor, but more often than not, this is a card that like favors you due to like how the parity is going to work. And we just have Thoughtcast as a 1 blue mana draw 2 in most cases. So going over to these zero-cost artifacts, Lotus Petal and Mox Opal makes sense, right? They're mana acceleration that's in the form of an artifact. That's exactly what we want. Chalice of the Void is one of the strongest cards in Legacy, if not the strongest card in Legacy. It'd have to have that fight with Brainstorm. So it's a no-brainer that we're playing that if we're playing a bunch of soul lands. Mishra's Bauble is just essentially an artifact-based cantrip. Now, you don't get the card immediately, but the upside of being an artifact matters for Karn, the Antiquity Wars, Sai, and even Mox Opal. It's the Jeweled Amulet that confuses people. So, what I want you to understand is that in this deck, this is kind of close to being a Mox. So, you pay 1 to put a charge counter on this, and then you can remove a charge counter to add a mana to your mana pool. And there's a bunch of restrictions, like it adds the same sort of mana that you used previously. But if you take a look at this deck, the curve is like zeros and then basically 4s, right? So most of the time on the first turn, you're not actually doing anything with your mana unless you have a Chalice or unless you can cast Sai or the Antiquity Wars or Karn on turn 1. So what that means for you is that a lot of times your first turn is sinking mana into Jeweled Amulet so that you can go and cast this big stuff very consistently on turn 2. So I know this doesn't really look good, but when you start considering the synergies of like the Antiquity Wars, Karn, Sai, Orrery, Thoughtcast, Metallic Rebuke, it actually does do a surprising amount of work, despite looking like an absolute garbage card. The sideboard isn't really very surprising. We have a couple of catch-all answers in Echoing Truth and Sorcerous Spyglass. We have some things for the creature matchups, Tumble Magnet for the real big creatures, Walking Ballista for the small creatures, and we have Tormod's Crypts, again, artifact synergy, for our graveyard matchups, and Mindbreak Trap for the really unfair stuff like Storm. So, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this. Again, this is a donation deck list, and thanks to Will, or user WD40, for going and donating for this. I'm really excited about this. I only played a couple of games with this, just kind of in the tournament testing room to just kind of like make sure I knew how the cards physically worked. So I'm by no means a master yet, but I've done some of the stupid learning. While we wait, one other announcement for those of you that didn't necessarily see it right as the stream started. I will be going to GP Richmond this week, so there is not going to be a Thursday or a Saturday stream accordingly. I'll make that up to you all later. Don't worry. There's some really cool stuff coming. Morning, Potentia. Yes, I would like to play first. Alright. Okay, what does my hand do? My hand goes City of Traders, Mox Opal, Mishra's Bauble, Lotus Petal, tap, I have to tap that first for blue, colorless, colorless, and some other color, and then I can play Antiquity Wars on turn 1. That is a keep. If you want to play with the Battle of Wits deck list, you should probably just ask Caleb, like message Caleb D on Twitter or something, and just ask for the deck list file. That's way better than trying to go and replicate that. Oh man, my opponent played a Chancellor. Alright, so that means I cannot Antiquity Wars on turn 1. Alright. So instead I can Mox Opal. Alright, let's just start doing this. Alright, so I can't produce... I guess I could Thoughtcast, right? So it costs me 2 mana, so I could Thoughtcast, but I'd rather hold up Metallic Rebuke, because right now I can tap for blue, and then I can tap both of these in order to pay, and just like casting Metallic Rebuke is probably just better than casting Thoughtcast here, I think. Yeah, so like the way the publishing works for deck list is I think if your deck list is like 10 cards different from every other deck list, it automatically gets published. Or it's something approximating that. So I think with 100% certainty that one does get published. Yes, I believe you are correct. That should be 10 cards different than everything else. No, I think my opponent's trying to figure out what they want to do with their turn, and it looks like their answer was, I just need to discard a fatty. Alright, so I have a choice right here. I can get aggressive and just, like, play the Antiquity Wars and try to race a Chancellor. Or, in some capacity, I can try to leave up Metallic Rebuke. If my opponent has double reanimation spell that they can play next turn, then Metallic Rebuke doesn't beat that. So I could pay 2 mana to Thoughtcast, leave myself with 1 floating, and then, like, leave the Lotus Petal untapped. And if I hit any artifact in those 2 cards, then I can still Metallic Rebuke. Alternatively, I can just, like, slam the Antiquity Wars, and try to hit like an artifact land, a lotus petal, or a mox opal in order to be able to metallic rebuke on my opponent's turn. I'm not sure exactly what my role is supposed to be here. Going 5 cards deep is pretty good. But what can I hit? So I can hit Seed of the Synod. Actually, maybe going 5 deep isn't that good. I'm gonna start by thought casting. I don't know if this is right, but this gives me the opportunity to like find a force of will as well. That Chancellor, like very early on in this game, like really messed with me. All right, so now I can Metallic Rebuke on my opponent's turn. And now I'm protected from discard because I have double Metallic Rebuke. All right. I'm going to target that. So this is blue. I tap both of those to improvise, and I get to Mana Leak. Surprise, opponent! Bet you didn't see that coming. Oh, please just don't do it again. Uh-oh. Alright, so now all my stuff's more expensive. Which is bad for me. Alright, so right now I have 3 mana. Alright, and so we'll store that mana in the Jeweled Amulet. And got 3 artifacts here, so I think I'm going to use 1 Bauble. I'm not going to use it yet. At my opponent's end step, I'm going to see what their next card is going to be and then use a Bauble so that I draw the card on my turn. Alright, so they're going to draw a Swamp. So I'll get another card here. Okay. So I can go 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, play Seat, that's 5 mana, and cast the Antiquities Wars, and potentially win this race. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. Nope, not that. This. I think I'm going to get a Chalice of the Void. And I'm not going to play these right now because of the Chancellor. It's still very possible that we just go and win this game, right? Like, I tick up again. And I play a whole bunch of zero-cost artifacts. Yeah, so, like, here I'll just play a Darksteel Citadel. Give me some more mana. So play this. So I can go 1/2 mana. I can go 2 mana, cast a Chalice on 1, pay for Chalice on 1. Or I can go Jeweled Amulet. I can go Jeweled Amulet, pay for that. Chalice on 0, pay for that. Stop myself from casting future zero-cost artifact spells, but I think I'm in the position where, like, next turn is the turn where I win or lose the game, because these are all going to become 5/5s. So I'm going to have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 power in play. Think that's fine. I think I just want, like, the extra power. And 35 power is enough where even if they get a Grizzlebrand, they block 2, they take 30. Yeah, that all seems fine. And I can even leave up Metallic Rebuke, right? The Opal is not a petal. So if I cast this Chalice, I pay 1 for it. Actually, is 30 power still enough to beat a Grizzlebrand? Because then I can leave up Metallic Rebuke, tap for it, tap for it, and also pay 1 for the Chancellor tax. That's actually probably better. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 power. 2 would be blocked. No, 20 power would be getting in. Yeah, so I do need to cast this on 0. Alright. Cast that on 0. Done. Is this good? This feels pretty okay. Gonna need a snip of that. Okay, so what do I want? I probably want Mindbreak Trap for when my opponent just, like, goes ham. I probably want Tormod's Crypt to, like, go and exile all the stuff. And Tumble Magnet buys infinite time against fatties. So what don't I want? I probably don't want Girapor Orrery. Like, my opponent can go Hellbent pretty easily as well, since they're a Lotus Petal Ritual deck, so this is probably bad. It might enable them to do some broken things. Can probably trim like one Psy. Can probably trim like one Thoughtcast. I I would be able to sideboard so much better with just a little bit more experience in the deck, with specific matchups, because like I don't know how much of a controlling role I'm supposed to take versus like how much of an aggro role I'm supposed to take. Like I feel like these are going to be better payoff cards than Psy. I also kind of feel like Metallic Rebuke is maybe medium. Like I know it's a counterspell, and that's the sort of card that I care about in this matchup, but I really want to tap out for these things. And then I can't hold that up when I do, so there's some tension there. Maybe I'm supposed to do something like this. I'm not entirely sure. It's also possible that I'm overboarding, and on the draw I shouldn't take the tumble magnets. Or something like that. Not exactly sure. Okay. So I'm not necessarily going anywhere fast with this hand, but I have two different counterspells, both of which are, like, potentially live. Okay. So I get to go cast Mox Opal, cast Darksteel Citadel, or play Darksteel Citadel, cast Tormod's Crypt, and then next turn I can play Antiquity Wars. I didn't want to just City and play Tumble Magnet this turn. I wanna save that. I do nothing a lot. We are in our first match. We hit with 35 power worth of artifact creatures last game. So I'm gonna go with well. It's going well. Pack Rat. That's actually kind of annoying because that dodges the graveyard-based plan. So I probably need to answer that. That's annoying. So I guess I pitch my Mind Break Trap, and whatever they do afterwards is just happening. I think I need to keep my payoff card. Second Pack Rat. Alright, that's a little unfortunate. I think I'm just going to take another Tormod's Crypt. Just to cast something else that I can put into play for the purposes of Antiquity Wars. Okay, so how much mana do I have? I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 mana easily, and 5 or 6 mana possibly. So I probably want to cast Chalice on 1. And I probably also want to play the Tumble Magnet as well. Then how much damage am I pushing in next turn? So if I put 2 artifacts into play, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 damage, some of which will be blocked by my opponent. So my opponent can probably go up to 3 rats. I can tap 1. Yeah, I want a Chalice. Alright. So I put a Chalice on 1. Then I play a land. I'll just play my island. I don't need to take damage. And then I'll play Tumble Magnet. So this will let me tap down a Pack Rat on my opponent's turn, probably only giving them 3 blockers and leaving me with lethal. This is still lethal. Yeah. Interestingly enough, if my opponent, like, hypothetically had like Dark Ritual as their last card, they could have, like, blocked one more thing and then ripped the reanimation spell off the top because both my Dormont's Crypts were tapped. Just sort of humorously to point that out. So just kind of watching out how that second game played, I wonder if in the first game on turn 2 I was just supposed to slam the Antiquity Wars, because if my opponent, like, reanimates a Chancellor, I just play through it. It's not that big of a deal. And just like that, we're 1-0. Alright, what does my hand do? My hand goes land, Mox Opal, Jeweled Amulet. I can only produce 1 mana on turn 1, but I store 1 on Jeweled Amulet. So on turn 2, I have 2 guaranteed mana. If I draw a land, I have 4 guaranteed mana. With 2 mana on turn 2, I can't cast Thoughtcast. But I'm on the draw, and, like, 1 more artifact or 1 more land makes this hand very good. I just think you keep hands that have the Antiquity Wars in it because that card is so powerful. play Delta. I'll cast a Mox Opal. I'll cast a Jeweled Amulet. And then I'll pass the turn. I'm going to get pretty aggressive with my Force of Will, because I want to empty my hand for Ghirapur Orrery. But I don't think I'm willing to just like fire it off on that Ponder in case my opponent's a Stifle deck. I want to be able to force a Stifle. Okay. Well, we're going to take this game a little slower than I was intending on taking it, but that's a fine draw. We'll cast a Chalice on 1, and if my opponent fights back in any capacity, I'll force pitching Thoughtcast. Main deck, Pyroblast. That is aggressive. Master, thank you very much for your continued support. 6 months is a very long time, and I'm glad you've been along for so much of the ride. Alright, well, my opponent's deck's interesting. So what am I doing? I don't have Metalcraft, so this isn't technically on currently. So I only have 3 mana. I can get up to 4 mana next turn. But I don't even know if I should play this City of Traders. So, like, if I just put a blue mana into Jeweled Amulet, the next turn I have 1, 2, 3, 4 guaranteed. If I draw another land, I could make it 5 to play around a Daze. I don't think my opponent's a Daze deck. I think I am not supposed to play this land. Oh, good luck, Master. I hear Tron's a pretty good deck. You know, I'm not much of a Modern player, but I've heard that deck gets to do powerful and broken things. And if the big mana decks in Legacy are in any indication, then I imagine when that scales for Modern, it's going to be pretty powerful. Okay. The Pyroblasts now make more sense. I get it now. So, new plan is Operation throw haymakers at my opponent until something sticks. This feels like a very unfavorable matchup for me because like they've got Spell Pierces and Pyroblasts and like a relatively quick combo kill in theory. I think I'm just gonna like drown in this search for Escanta. I'm not gonna be able to play around any soft permission really. This doesn't have any counters on it currently. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and just like put a Psy into, or I guess I can go 3 mana and just play Psy this turn. And not give up my soul land. I think I'm supposed to play Psy this turn. And then next turn play an Orrery. I haven't watched any Monster in a little while. I kind of like stopped watching it when I went to Latin Academy, and I just haven't gotten back to it yet. I'm going to finish it. The show is very good. It's just not necessarily. It's just not necessarily a show that you're always in the mood for. It's very dark. It's very slow in terms of pacing, not in a bad way. Like, it's very enjoyable. Alright, if I play this Darksteel Citadel, I lose out on 1 theoretical mana, but I get it back from the Jeweled Amulet, and if I hit another land drop next turn, I get, like, closer to being able to cast Girapur Orrery. So I think I'm actually going to do that, despite the fact that that looks very bad on paper. Hello, hello, welcome. Alright. Alright, so my opponent has just, like, maximum counterspells. So, this can name Grindstone. And I don't really think I want much else that's in my deck. Like, sorry, I don't think I want very many other things from this sideboard. So I don't really love 2-for-1ing myself against an opponent that has so many counterspells. So I think I'm going to trim some forces. Like, I'd actually love to play no forces, but I don't think that's realistic. Like, the only other thing I could really board is, like, Echoing Truth. But I just want to empty my hand for Orrery if I draw that. And I think there's a very good chance of me going Hellbent in this sort of matchup. I could just board Mindbreak Trap as like a 4-mana counterspell. That might be better than Force of Will. But I think I'm just going to submit this. This is not a common matchup. We don't really have sideboard cards for it accordingly. Pladion, I'm doing very well. What does my hand do? Right now, my hand is stone cold nothing. But I'm very heavy on gas. Like, I have 4 bombs, and I can try to protect one of them. So I would just lead on probably Seat, Bobble you for a redraw, and just, like, be trying to draw into mana to start casting these. This is probably fine. I think it's close to not being fine. It's possible I'm supposed to just, like, mulligan towards a more aggressive hand, but I can just feed these into counterspells, assuming I get to draw into some land. And I'm going to go ahead and bobble immediately, so if I draw a worse card than Antiquity Wars, I can do that to Force of Will. Yeah, like Sai. Sai is not a card I necessarily need to cast this game. Oh boy, do we have gas. So I don't even think I... Do I want to cast Sai this turn? I don't think I want to cast Sai this turn. I think Sai is going to be Force of Will fodder to try to protect one of these better cards. So I think I'm just going to pass and put counters on both of my Jeweled Amulets. Yeah, my opponent's now at the point where they have 8 cards in hand, so they have to play something or discard. A Painter's Servant. Am I willing to let that resolve? If I let it resolve, I just cast a Karn with Force of Will backup. And I Karn minus to create a giant construct. If my opponent has a Pyroblast, they could Pyroblast the Karn. But the opponent could already Pyroblast, like the Antiquities Wars, that I would play otherwise. I think I let this one go. Okay, so I can't charge this more than once, I see. Well, that's fine. Yeah, so I with that draw, I think I'm going to slow things down. I think I'll cast a Chalice and force my opponent to take action on that. Alright, so my Chalice gets countered. But now I'm going to throw bombs at my opponent. My opponent hasn't had any time to like cantrip or anything, so I'm not too afraid of just like getting Grindstoned it out this turn. If my opponent has it, my opponent has it. Spellskite is fine. Oh, my opponent's just F6'd. So which one of these do I want to play? If I just Karn minus, that gives me a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That makes a 6-6. Then I minus and make a 6-6. And then I play another Karn and I minus and I make a 6-6. And that just probably crushes quickly. How is this versus Antiquity Wars? So Karn provides more immediate pressure, but the Antiquity Wars can get me more cards. And if it resolves, it kills in the same timeline, presumably. The Antiquity Wars can also make it easier to do a follow-up play as well. Chalice of the Void. Well, that's most excellent. Obviously not going to cast that on 0 here. Is this going to be War of Invention? So my opponent gets to search for Grindstone. Alright. Not too much I could have done there. Like, if I had initially had forced the Painter Servant, like, my Force of Will would have just gotten Pyroblasted, and we would have ended up in a very similar situation overall. My opponent had so much counter magic there, and, like, the main deck Pyroblast was very, very backbreaking, so I don't think that's a matchup I'm going to win, generally speaking. Womp womp. Alright, my opponent mulligan. What does my hand do? My hand goes, if I draw any 0-cost artifact, my hand produces a turn 1 Chalice of the Void. Considering that my opponent has mulliganed, I'm going to keep. I can Force of Will with Psy to protect my Chalice, or if my opponent just plays an Aether Vial, I will force the ever-loving crap out of that. And we're going to pitch Psy here, like, both because it's my only blue card, and, like, I have to, and also because I want to not keep Psy in my hand for Caracas reasons for Ghirapur Orrery. Actually, do I play this Chalice on 1? Or do I wait one more turn and just cast it on 2? Like, the Chalice on 1 doesn't really do much. I guess I can stop Swords to Plowshares on my Karn tokens. And I guess I don't really want to throw away my Lotus Petal to Chalice. I want to throw away my Lotus Petal to Karn. So I guess I will do that. And essentially just doing this here is increasing my artifact count for Karn. Opponent's thinking about something. They might be, like, trying to figure out, like, how they win this game from here. Like, maybe they're debating, like, do I revoke her? Do I Thalia? Maybe they're debating, like, do I need to get aggressive? Sure. Alright, so my Mox Opal doesn't work, so that means I'm just going to play another land and pass the turn. I'm already exposed to Wasteland, so I'm just going to go ahead and play a Seed of the Synod to increase my artifact count for Karn. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So if my opponent goes like land Flicker Wisp, that could be pretty bad for me. Because I can just like flicker this construct or like flicker the Revoker on Karn. That Jitte is not threatening. There's some argument for plussing the Karn, so that if my opponent goes like land into Flicker Wisp, they can't flicker my construct and kill my Karn. But I like getting aggressive here. Bahar, thank you very much for auto-hosting. I appreciate your support. Like, my opponent's clearly demonstrated in the past couple of turns that they don't have a land. So I think I'm fine with putting them on, like, both drawing a land and having a Flicker Wisp for this line. Because if they don't, like, I get to attack them for 12 on the next turn. And then I get to, like, plus Karn, and I feel like things are pretty locked up. If my opponent's best play is, like, Equip Revoker and Chump Block, that's pretty great for me. Yeah, I agree. Like, pressing my advantage while my opponent is stumbling is very powerful. If my opponent has, like, shut off a little bit of my mana, like, they got to port me a little bit, they got to take me off the Opal, but my 4-mana card here just is really sticking it to them. It kind of appears like my opponent kept their hand on the strength of Aether Vial, and once I Force of Willed that, it was backbreaking. Okay. Alright, so since I'm obligated to plus Karn, I will just do so now. A land in an Antiquities War. Mmm. Mmm. Alright, so I have two 8/8s. So my opponent dies if they don't block. So this is a safe attack. Hey, they can wasteland my Seat of the Synod to only turn my guys into 7/7s. Isn't that cool? So opponent is effectively at... Yeah, alright, they're donezo. Alright, what do I want for D&T? Ballista's insane. Spyglass is pretty good. Tumble Magnet and Echoing Truth are things that I would consider, but that'd probably just be overboarding. I don't want Psy because it's just... It's a legendary creature in a Caracas matchup, so that doesn't, like, sit well with me. And then I'd need to trim one other card. How's my blue count? If I get rid of 3 blue cards, I should probably trim 1 Force of Will. And honestly, Force of Will isn't going to be all that great if my blue count is this low, and it's not all that great of a card versus D&T anyway. Like, you want to force Files, but there's very few other cards that I'd actively want to force. So maybe I'm supposed to get rid of those and just play a couple more fair cards. I'm not 100% sure there. Like, I can play the Tumble Magnets, but those are really for big creatures. Like, Tumble Magnet can gain me, 6-ish life versus D&T. And I guess that's okay. But, like, once, like, Thalia and Revoker start getting into the picture, I don't love this. So maybe I want somewhere between, like, 2 and 3 Force of Wills. The thing is, I don't really want to pitch Antiquity Wars to it. Maybe I'm supposed to do, like, this, and just, like, 1 Echoing Truth can get rid of, like, some timely hate card. Like, the Chalice of the Voids also aren't very good. But I kind of need to keep high artifact density. So I'm going to do this. Like, if my opponent has, like, Pithing Needles that they've brought in from the sideboard, it's still fine. I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to approach this matchup. You could Echoing Truth your own Antiquity War, but I think a lot of times you'll just want to just let that third trigger happen. So this hand has a Walking Ballista, which is absolutely the Nutter Butters versus D&T, but it has literal nothing else going on, and Triple City of Traders isn't where I want to be. So, like, I could play, like, City of Traders into Ancient Tomb, pay 4 mana, Walking Ballista on turn 2, turn 3, play another Soul Land, and if my opponent doesn't have a 1-drop removal spell, I just, like, tick up Walking Ballista every turn for the rest of the game. I don't think I can keep this. This hand has more spells, so this is probably fine. Mox Opal, how do I feel about that? Mox Opal would give me the blue mana I need to cast the Antiquity Wars, so I'll put that on top. Boo. So next turn I have 1, 2, 3, 4 with my city, 5, 6 mana. So even if my opponent plays Thalia, I can still cast the Antiquity Wars. Oh man, did my opponent really keep a 1-land Vial Opener in a matchup where they really need to be hyper disruptive? Because that seems like a mistake. Do I want to bobble and trade this for another random card? So right now I have 4 artifacts in play. That is the 20 damage that is necessary. I think I'm okay with using this, though. Alright, so my opponent has a Jitte on top, which doesn't really seem good in this matchup. Oh man, Seat is awesome. Alright. Antiquity Wars is just until end of turn, right? Yeah. If I play a Jeweled Amulet, I can just poop out another creature exactly, like put another theoretical creature exactly on board right now. The Gear per Orrery is nice if things go wrong. So I guess that's a fine take as well. So next turn, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So next turn, I can Gear per Orrery and Chalice on 1. Yeah. I'll take the backup plan. Oh, God. That's disgusting. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So I can do both of these. And even if my opponent puts in a Phyrexian Revoker and stops either Mox Opal or Jeweled Amulet, I still have 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one of these or the other. Stoneforge Mystic, go and get a Batterskull, I guess. Go and get Sword of Fire and Ice. Do you already have Batterskull? Well, I get to take a look and see. You already have Batterskull. Is this one of those things where I have to snip this because it won't actually get revealed properly? I don't remember. Okay, so do I have lethal if my opponent puts in Batterskull still? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I'll put in one more artifact. So that's 30 damage that we'll be able to swing in. If my if my opponent draws land, they put in Batterskull, and they essentially negate They block, and then they negate. So 2 of these are negated. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Yeah, so I just name Aether Vial. Okay, what if my opponent paths? If I leave... I guess I'm going to need to chalice on 1. No, I already chaliced on 1, so the path is irrelevant. Yeah, so since I beat the Batterskull, I just name Aether Vial. Alright, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So this is actually pretty neat. Check this out, chat. I just figured this out. So when I play this, I'm going to get another land drop. So then I get to play my city, get rid of my other city, and then play this. And I'll also get to draw cards. Hey, morning, Hippity Long Ears. By the way, I love that like little Mirren Crusader image you posted the other day. That was hilarious. Oh, and just like that, I won the match. All right, chat, I'm going to take 1 second to run to the bathroom here. I will be right back. All right, everyone, I'm back. Good morning, my name is Phil Gallagher. I run ThrabenU University, and today we're having a lot of fun streaming with the Antiquity Wars. We are currently 2-1 in matches. We just beat D&T. Oh man, Hippity Long Ears, you're playing 4 Crusaders today? Get them. Get them dead. Just put swords on that guy and just obliterate everyone. It feels so good. Yeah, I know. We haven't had to use the Chara mode anymore. I've upgraded a little bit. Speaking of, and I'm not going to talk about this yet, but next month there's some really cool stuff coming for this channel. I'm very excited about it. And remember the last time that I was hinting and being vague, it was the Legacy Premier League that I was referring to. We have something else coming that I'm very excited about. Stay tuned. That information will become public in September. So basically, after the GP, I'll talk about it. But I'm still working out some of the details. That's right. This is my announcement of announcements. Get 'em. It's important to be a good tease. I'm playing against the French Goblin. who has played Pox recently. My opponent is mulligan. I'm going to keep this hand. Mtesm, I'm comfortable in saying that it is not yet merchandise. That's still further on the horizon. It is something to do with like content and the nature of the stream. So you get to go turn 1, Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, Chalice. I'm going to go ahead and play this Lotus Petal first. My opponent wants to like Daze or Spell Pierce this. I'm like super game for that. And we go Ancient Tomb, Chalice. This might win the game, or it will like pave the way for like a turn 2 Karn to resolve. Yeah, so I really want to do some merchandise just with like the beginning of school and the Legacy Premier League and like streaming 3 days a week. I just don't have time to look into it properly right now. So like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it, but not quite yet. Jam! Days. Womp, 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 womp. So we're probably playing against a Delver deck of some variety. Guess Grixis Delver. The land they returned was an Underground Sea. Yeah, I said my opponent had played Pox recently, but my opponent has like all sorts of different results, so I didn't take that as like an authoritative thing. So like they have Pox and Post finishes from this year. Oh man, is my opponent just going to play an early Angler? Because that would be very bad for me. No, my opponent can't play an Angler yet, but maybe they thought they could play an Angler. They need one more card in graveyard to do that. Alright, so how will I fare against Angler? If my opponent plays Angler next turn, like on my turn, I play Seat and Karn. I Karn minus, I create a 3/3. I Karn minus, I create a 4/4. I play a land, I create a 5/5. So I'm actually not that bad off, especially if I draw like another artifact. Okay. So I can cast this Opal. I cast this Seat. And now I play Karn. Karn is Daze proof. Karn minus. Create a 4/4. Alright. So if my opponent has Bolt plus Angler, fuck. That's bad. Oh, that Wasteland's actually pretty good. Oh man, they Wastelanded my worst land. Hot damn. Bitter Blossom. Alright. So I think I just Karn minus and get aggressive. Like I can like Karn plus and like take this out of bolt range or take it out of like token attack range, but like my next turn is gonna do that anyway. So I think I just need to like get another dude in play so that these Bitter Blossoms just aren't jumping forever. And I'm going to have this surprise Metallic Rebuke for my opponent. Yeah, you can brainstorm. That's fine. I'm basically only going to counter something that impacts the board noticeably. Like, I'm afraid of a Gurmag Angler. I don't even know if I'd counter a Delver. Like, I think about it. But I more want to counter something that kills one of my constructs or a Karn. Alright, that gets countered. Alright. So I'll pay 1, I'll improvise, and I'll pay 1. So now I even play around Spell Pierce. Woo! Alright, so we're playing against Delver. I guess Tumble Magnet's okay, but not against Bitter Blossom. Walking Ballista's okay. Like, it kills Delvers. Or, like, Bomat Couriers. I honestly feel like most of my main deck is well-suited to beat them. Like, Chalice hurts hard. And these 4-drops resolving hurts pretty hard as well. I guess Psy's kind of good against Gurmag Angler because I can create my own Chumpers. So I think I don't play my Force of Wills. They have so few cards that I'd actually want to force. And I think the rest of this stuff is good. So I'm going to put Ballistas in as removal. And I guess I'll play 2 Tumble Magnets. Like, I'm fine with Tumble Magnet gaining me like 9 life from Flip Delvers or 15 life from a Gurmag Angler. I don't know that I want to go any deeper than 2 Tumble Magnets. But I feel like something approximating this is right. I'm kind of like trimming the Force because my opponent can deal with my Force for less mana than I can. And the cards that I would be pitching to Force are just good cards that I want to draw in the matchup. It's possible that I should not play Metallic Rebuke, and that should just be one more Tumble Magnet. But I'm unsure. Maybe the surprise of this is very important. I'm going to submit this as is. What does my hand do? My hand goes land, opal, nothing. And if I get wastelanded, I just die. What if I draw a 0-cost artifact? If I draw a 0-cost artifact, then my hand goes 0-cost artifact, opal, seat, chalice. Which is good. The rest of this hand's kind of awkward. Chat, what do you think? Is this one a mulligan? I feel like this one's a mulligan. In order for this to be good, I need to hit land or a non-Mox Opal 0-cost artifact. So I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I have 18 hits to make this acceptable. So that's over a third. Is that fine? It's just like so bad to a wasteland. think I'm going to ship this one. This hand has no payoff card. But it has mana, so I'll keep. Alright, Psy's really good. That can go on top. I don't think I'm going to play Psy around Days, because the way I see myself winning this game is me casting Psy and then just crapping a whole bunch of Thopters, and I think I need to not play around Days in order to give myself that one other Thopter. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I do want to play around Days. Like, the one more Thopter doesn't matter that much. I guess Psy resolving matters more. Sorry, I talked myself into it. Don't force me. Yeah! So then at my opponent's end step, I'll Mishra's Bobble to see what their top card is. The nice thing is that Psy dodges Lightning Bolt. It doesn't necessarily like dodge something like Fatal Push. So my opponent still could go like fetch Fatal Push Psy. But I will have gotten 2 Thopters out of the deal. So I guess that's fine. Ooh, Psy gets to live another day. So it's possible I should have, like, Mishra's Bobbled cracked to see, like, right here in response to the Ponder to see one of their random cards on top. So, like, now I'm going to see the card that they're going to draw next turn, but not the card that they just, like, got. And if I did it the other way, I could have potentially seen one of their better cards. Okay, so they have a true name. Yeah, we 100% cracked the Bobble to try to draw into more stuff, and we whiffed, unfortunately, which is very bad. Honestly, I might even just, like, sacrifice my Lotus Petal to or no, sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card. No, that's not quite worth it. Yeah, I'm winning the onboard race. It's just kind of unfortunate I don't really have any gas currently. Thought sees me. Deal. Deal. My hand is garbage. So one thing to think about is, like, I wonder if my opponent has any answers to Psi in their deck right now. Like, it's very possible that given that they just, like, saw me on Karn and, like, Chalice, that they boarded out things like Fatal Push. So this Psi might be, like, way better than I actually think it is. Oh, okay, they do have a Fatal Push. Do I want to draw a card with Psi by, like, sacking these two things? I don't know that I do. Like, if it's like a Karn or an Antiquities War that I draw, I'm, like, super happy. But otherwise, just, like, I think it's really close. The thing is that if I top deck a Karn, like, Karn plus a few more artifacts in play is so much more threatening, and the same is true of the Antiquities War. In order to do this, I would need to Ancient Tomb shock myself. I don't think I want to do that in the face of my opponent going and playing a True Name. Super rewarded. So now I get to play this around, like, days. So now my opponent could, like, theoretically tap out for their True Name Nemesis, but then I just keep poking them for Thopters, and I make constructs bigger than what their True Name is, so I can safely go and attack into it. No, I don't know if that's true. I think I just, like, minus Karn again this turn. I think I just minus Karn, and my opponent cannot afford to attack into my Karn to kill it. Because if they do, they will take 12 from my constructs. Like, if I plus Karn, I probably just get a bad card this way, like this turn anyway. So I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to minus Karn. My opponent says, I think I had this game if you drew anything else. Alright, and we move on to 3-1 with the Antiquity Wars. Snow-covered Sam, if you just want to see it visually, here's what the deck looks like. It's a thing of beauty. Yeah, it's awesome. So we lost to Blue-Red Painter's Servant because they just had like infinite counterspells. But against like more normal decks, the 4-mana cards like Karn and the Antiquities Wars are just tearing through people. They're hyper aggressive in this shell. Like I have every time the Antiquities War Ultimate has gone off, I've just won the game. No exceptions. And I think every time a Karn hit play, and I just went minus minus, I've also won the game with no exceptions. So that's neat. Sort of interestingly, I've never cast a Thoughtcast, and that was the first time that I got Psy in play. Yeah, so Karn in this deck is way better than Karn in... Well, okay. Karn in this deck is way more aggressive than Karn in the Red Prison deck because you have so many more cheap artifacts. So when you're making those Karn tokens, they are monsters. They are absolute monsters. Whereas Karn in the Bridge deck tends to be like your primary mode of Karn is just plus forever. Karn in this deck is just like minus Karn, I'm going to kill you. So it's a very different like style of playing with Karn. So I'm theoretically on board with Thoughtcast, but I think I've ended up pitching it to Force of Will a few times, which is why I haven't cast one. The Antiquity Wars is like the sort of card where like you just don't pitch that to Force unless like you're going to die. Alright, looking at my hand, what did I do? Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Sigh, Mox Opal, Bauble? Okay. Hold on, I think my plan just changed, chat. So... Ancient Tomb Chalice on 1 is stellar. Is that better or worse than me playing Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Sigh, Thopter, redraw, follow up with Chalice on 1 on my second turn? I'm not sure. I think I'm supposed to play Psy first, as weird as that sounds. Because I think that sets me up to race. And it makes me want to play out as like a bunch of my cards in case my opponent has Eidolon on turn 2, because Eidolon would be really, really good against me. So I think I'm playing Psy. So there's not a strictly better line here. There are different lines. Both lines play around different things and accomplish very different things. So what I am doing is opting to play around Eidolon and potentially take a couple more points of damage from some 1-drops. In return for doing so, I stabilize the board very early, and I give myself a greater long-term value engine. And I'm just going to go ahead and see what they're going to draw. Arid Mesa. Oh shit, could I have Thoughtcast too? 1, 2, 3. Oh shit, I could have Thoughtcast. Alright, that's on me. I wasn't conceptually counting my Thopter tokens when I was doing that math. Searing Blaze, a Thopter. You got it. Alright. Good luck, opponent. Chalice is on 1. I have 3, 4, I have 5 power in play. Okay. I don't think I'm supposed to play Gear per Ear Orrery. I do think taking 2 more to play the Antiquity Wars is probably fine. But maybe I don't need to. What beats me? My opponent playing a Fire Blast plus another 4 damage spell would do it. So my opponent could double Fire Blast me to kill me, or they could, like, Exquisite Firecraft to kill me. If I draw any other land on the following turn, I could go like Mox Opal land and then cast the Antiquity Wars without taking any damage. So right now I have 5 damage in play. I can attack my opponent down to 6 next turn. So I really do need to make one more Thopter. I think I'm just going to pass this turn, because there's a pretty good chance I can make 2 Thopters on my following turn if I need to. Price of Progress me for 2 damage. Okay. That's fine. Alright, how does Searing Blaze read? Deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, and 1 damage to target creature that player controls. So I could just go and sack this Mox Opal and this Thopter to draw a card, essentially for free. Yeah, I know it doesn't counter it. Oh wait, this is 2 mana. Thought it was 1 mana. So if I pay 2 mana to do this, then this is off of Jeweled Amulet. Does that matter? If I take this off of Jeweled Amulet, I might not be able to cast a 4-drop, but I think that's probably fine. Yeah. So sacrifice this. Actually, maybe I sacrifice Jeweled Amulet, and then if I want to play a 4-drop, I just do that. Nah, I'll just sacrifice this still. A Karn. Okay. Alright, opponent Chalice checks me. Can't actually miss that one. So we're playing against Burn. Honestly, I don't know that I'll sideboard very much. I don't know that really any of these cards are good. Like, Tumble Magnet can stop some of the creatures, but doesn't do anything against the spells. Echoing Truth can bounce some annoying things. Like, Sulfuric Vortex. I don't know that I'm going to sideboard a single card here, chat. Actually, maybe Ghirapur Orrery is actively bad, because when my opponent goes Hellbent, like, if they draw those 3 cards, I probably die. This probably needs to go. So I think all... Like, of these cards, I guess Echoing Truth is the best. If my opponent plays Eidolon of the Great Revel on turn 2 before I kind of, like, vomit all my stuff, that's a little annoying for me. So I guess I want to be able to bounce that. Actually, do I want to be able to bounce that, or do I want to be able to Ballista that? HC Fox Antiquity Wars is the best card in the deck. If I just like play that, my opponent dies 2 turns later. It's very good. Alright, maybe it's Ballista over Echoing Truth. Turn 1 Chalice with Force of Will backup. Keep. Okay, is this Goblin Guide going to do enough damage to me where it is worth a Force of Will? Like, legitimately serious question, chat. I feel like this Goblin Guide is going to be worth at least 6 points of damage. I think I forced this. Once this Chalice is down, about the only card I care about is Smash to Smithereens on it. But I think if I leave that Goblin Guide there, I'm at very much a risk of just dying to it. All right, so my opponent is drawing a Price of Progress, so I know about that. All right, let's take a look at my opponent's next card. Their next card is a Pyroblast, or Fire Blast, which I hope they shuffle away. Okay. I think it is probably a mistake for my opponent to draw the card that was there. They probably want to, like, marginally thin their deck. That's something that matters when you're playing Burn. And they also would much rather have a card that I don't know that they have. Right, how much does this cost? This costs 2 mana currently. All right. Does my opponent have... All right. So I'm going to cast a Chalice on 2 here. Because if my opponent does not have Smash to Smithereens right now, that locks them out of that as an out. If they do have Smash to Smithereens right now, I sort of, like, trade 1 for 1 with that. Like, if they don't have Smash here, they just get to Price of Progress me for 2. That I accept. So now, these are both going to be here forever, and my opponent needs to beat me with, like, Fire Blasts and Sulfuric Vortexes. Okay. No. I I don't like since I know my opponent has Price of Progress at that time, I don't want to play another non-basic land. So I believe you are incorrect. Now that I've shut off Price of Progress as an out, I'm okay with like playing out more of these. Okay. Yeah, there's literal no way for them to take this chalice off of the table that they should be playing. So I can just play this out in case I like thought cast into a whole bunch of stuff and herp a derp a derp a derp a derp. Oh yes, Volt Charge. Volt Charge would be good. Like proliferate all that stuff off. I mean, in all honesty, like if opponent plays Sulfuric Vortex, that is a little bit scary. But otherwise, I don't care about most of their stuff. Good God. So I need to draw like Psy, Antiquity Wars, Karn. Ballista's fine. So I can go. I think I just want to cast Ballista for 2. I don't think I want to like tap the Ancient Tombs to make it like absolutely effing huge. Because like either way, a Fire Blast can go and kill it before it gets too out of control. So I think just casting this for 2 is fine. And then, like, if I keep drawing blanks, I just, like, use my turn to pump Ballista. We would not be losing to any common burn sideboard cards. We would be losing to some weird stuff. Oh, yes, we're at the point where my burn opponent is discarding. We've done something right. Okay. That's good. Oh yeah, there is a reason why my opponent is not doing anything. It is not by choice. Honestly, opponent might need to like Fire Blast Psy in response to me like casting my first thing. Because this is gross. Alright, so I'm going to sacrifice 2 artifacts. I'm going to sacrifice an opal and one of these petals. I'm going to draw a new card. I'm going to cast an opal. So my opponent's dead next turn with the board, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. My opponent is dead to board. I am not going to tap my Ancient Tomb to play Karn. My opponent has had enough. Okay, so we 4-1'd, and most of the matches were very easy. The Painter Servant deck, where they had infinite counterspells, that was difficult because this is a deck that really relies on one of these cards resolving to do anything. So in any given hand, there might only be like one true business spell, or maybe even 0 business spells. So when you can't get one of these to resolve, your deck does very little. Like, objectively speaking, basically all of this stuff does nothing, right? None of this wins the game. Chalice buys time. Thoughtcast and Orrery draw cards, but it's these cards that win you the game. So I think against most regular decks, this deck can have a great time and be very powerful. But against decks that are heavier on counterspells than a normal blue deck, you're going to have a lot of trouble, I think. So, like, if you're playing against decks that have, more than, I don't know, more than about 4 counterspells, you're probably going to start to, like, have a bad time. So, like, when you, like, play against, like, maybe even a Delver deck that has, like, Daze and Force, and then in post-sideboard games, like, maybe like Pierces in the main deck as well, that when you don't, like, get a Chalice off, that might be kind of difficult. Paradoxical Outcome would be interesting. That could theoretically do a ton of stuff in a deck like this. So for anyone not familiar with Paradoxical Outcome, it's essentially a storm engine in Vintage, where you get to go and return any number of, I think it's non-land permanents to your hand, and you draw a card for each one returned this way. So you target all your, like, 0 mana stuff, and you pick them all up, and you draw a card, and then you vomit them all out again, then you get another outcome, and you draw a card. That seems good. So how would I change this deck if I were to play it again? What I actually wonder is, yeah, so Nick, Kid the Carpenter, you got it. That was exactly my thought. My thought was, is this a defense grid deck? Is this a card where these cards are so important to resolving and you can't really effectively fight over them with your own force of wills? Is this a card where you should just, like, slam defense grid early and then go, all right, your counters are done? One of the things I don't like about that, though, is that it's still going to be vulnerable to the opposing artifact hate that your opponents are going to play anyway. So maybe it's not as good as, like, something like Sneak and Show, where, like, the artifact hate does nothing there, so it's just, like, you can't find other ways to deal with that card. But I do wonder about that. Yeah, so, Lewis, this is not a good Force of Will deck. I am 100% in agreement. Because you literally never want to pitch the Antiquity Wars to Force of Will. Like, the only time I will do that is if my opponent, like, opens up on something crazy, like Entomb or Show and Tell, right? The Antiquity Wars is just one of your critical cards, and so is Sai. So I wonder if this deck should not have Force of Will. and if it should just like try to play like a couple other cards. Like maybe you slip in like 2 more cantrip baubles, maybe you slip in like some other alternate win condition into these slots. I don't know exactly what that would be off the top of my head, but I'm kind of curious because this deck list is a little all in on just a few cards. So the person who donated for this deck did say that it is a little bit all in, and that it's very possible to play a different version of this deck that's like closer to Legacy Bomberman, where like you have those alternate win conditions for the times where your plan A doesn't necessarily work. So there are definitely other ways to build this. The sideboard seems fine. I'm not in love with it. I don't know exactly what I'd change or how I'd change it differently. Kind of what I was realizing was that I wasn't wanting to sideboard very many cards because I wanted to keep the core of my engine in check. So a lot of times I'd be sideboarding out my Force of Wills, and I'd be just kind of replacing that with a couple of cards. But otherwise, I didn't board very many cards at all. So I'm not sure exactly what that means for sideboarding, but there's probably some implications there. Like, maybe that means that the sideboard... Okay, so let me rewind and kind of think about this sideboard again. If I'm not going to be sideboarding very many cards, I want cards that are very specific rather than very general, right? I want powerful cards that really want to make the matchup swing when I draw them. So like looking again at this sideboard, right? Most of these cards are not generic. Crypt is very targeted. Mindbreak Trap, Tumble Magnet, those are very targeted. I have very few generic sideboard cards, and maybe that's actually correct. You know, I was kind of looking at my sideboard and thinking, like, hey, I don't really have that many good cards for this, but maybe that's because I'm not supposed to sideboard many cards. So actually, I think that's kind of my conclusion. The sideboard here kind of makes sense, and I just didn't think about it that way until now. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up our Antiquity Wars stream here, and it's lunchtime for me. So thank you all for watching. My name is Phil Gallagher, and I run Thraben University. If you enjoyed this content, please consider doing a donation deck list. This stream was a lot of fun, and Will, WD40, donated in order to make this stream happen. So thank you, Will, for supporting my channel and helping me play lots of Legacy. And if you really like what I'm doing, consider following, subscribing, doing a donation deck list, something to help out the channel. There's going to be some really cool content coming in September, and I hope to see many of you again on Monday night. Cheers! Have a good afternoon.